So I was thinking about, we talk a lot about kindness, and we've also been talking about the 8 worldly concerns and attachment to only the happiness of this life. So kindness is obviously going to be something virtuous, and attachment to the happiness of only this life is something that's non-virtuous. So how do we put the two of those two together in terms of when we are practicing generosity or receiving generosity? Okay, so let's say that somebody is being kind and giving us something, and that inspires our attachment to the happiness of this life, like the chocolate cake at yesterday's lunch. Okay, it was offered with kindness, and yet, well, I don't know about you, but me, there's, some attachment to the happiness of this life in it. Okay, so what's going on in terms of who's creating virtue and who's creating non-virtue? The person who's offering it just with the thought of generosity is creating virtue. The person who's receiving it and generating attachment is creating non-virtue. Yeah, so we need to be very careful when people give us things out of kindness that we don't use them to create non-virtue, because that's certainly not the intention of the person giving us the things. Especially as monastics, their intention is that they give us things and we use those things to create virtue. Okay, so we have to be careful with that. So if somebody gives us that, chocolate cake, which, by the way, where did it come from? Did you make it? Or you made it? Amazing chocolate cake. Yeah, but if we can, accept that with humility, if we can offer it to the Buddha, that's why we offer our food, at lunch, then, and then really work to subdue the attachment to the happiness of this life regarding it, then we're accepting it properly. Now, what about if we go to make an offering to somebody else, and what's in our mind is, this can get very interesting. If we have the thought, I'll give this to them, and it'll make them get attached. Well, clearly, if we give something with the purpose of inciting somebody else's attachment, our giving is going to definitely be contaminated. Okay. Now, what about if we give, or just with the idea to give, but the other person gets attached to it? Yeah? What do you think then? Or what about if we can pretty well predict that the other person's going to get attached to it? Yeah. Because if we just, if we give and we don't think about they're going to get attached, they're not going to get attached. Our giving is generous, their karma is what they create. If we give with the idea of, they're likely to get attached to this, then that's not really kindness, is it? Yeah? Because if we have the idea of, I don't want them to get attached, not necessarily like I want them to get attached, but they're very likely to get attached. Yeah, then it would probably be better to refrain from it, yeah. But in this case, it might be very difficult to create any giving at all, because so many of the people, the recipients, ordinary sentient beings, so often get attached to the things they receive. So does that mean then that we don't make any offerings and give anything to anybody at all? No, it doesn't mean that either, okay? Because, for example, somebody might be impoverished and you give them a blanket. they're going to really appreciate that blanket. They may get attached to it, but still it's something virtuous for you to give, you know. I think the difference is if you have the intention for them to become attached, because you can't control what their minds do. Okay, but still, we should kind of look at situations and think kind of carefully. You know, is this gift, you know, going to generate great attachment in somebody's mind, whereby they could get involved in a lot of conflict with other people because we've given them this thing, versus, you know, it's likely that they're going to get attached. That's not the reason we're giving. But it probably won't, you know, create any huge damage. Okay. So what I'm getting at is, you know, in acting with kindness and being generous, there's so many different things to think about. Yeah. Because sometimes, like if you have children in the same family, if you give to one of the children, yeah, that child may get attached to it, or they may not, but it's likely to cause conflict because the other children, you didn't get something. Okay? So then, but if you gave with the idea that just to give, yeah, but then the children develop conflict over that, then what? You know. Yeah, you can help them. You could help them to learn to deal with the conflict. But that doesn't really contaminate your gift because you just wanted to give. But if you had I think if you were aware of the idea that I could give to one child and chances are their siblings would get jealous, and you still gave, you know, that you might have to really look at. You know, if you gave with that thing of, I'm going to get involved with the kids and help them to learn to deal with it, that's one thing. But if you just give and then you exit, and then the parents or whoever is left to deal with the kids fighting over something, yeah, then that's a different ballgame. Okay? So it's very interesting to think of these kinds of things, you know, both when we give gifts and when we receive gifts, to really try and make things something that is of, you know, great advantage or benefit to somebody in all the different ways that they could benefit from it. Mm-hmm.
It seems also like it's good to think about the short and the long term.
Yeah, quite definitely think about the short term and the long term. Yeah. Were you thinking about something specifically there?
I was thinking about how if you were to give to the kids,
Mm-hmm.
to one child, and you knew the other might get unhappy or have some trouble with it. So in a sense, that's a short-term problem.
Mm-hmm.
But if you actually then were going to, you know, if it was going to be quite good for that one child, it would be something that would be really helpful for the child you were giving it to. That's what I was thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be some short-term problem with the other child, but maybe it would be something that was quite meaningful and really helpful to the first.
Yeah.
And that would be worth doing.
Yeah. Right.
You know?
And then also try and mitigate the harm with the other child, because you could give this kid, the gift might be very meaningful, but then if they later got in conflict with the other child, that might destroy the meaningfulness of the gift for them too. Yeah. So it's, you know, to really kind of take care with those kinds of things. Yeah. Okay.